let's talk about something that's a little, it's depressing on the one hand, but it is research that has been done that is not of the most absolutely horrible variety. We generally look at some pretty awful stuff here on the channel, but I do think that today's video is going to be a little less of that. Only because I really like the person who made the article. Not that the article doesn't also contain horrifying information. So let me make that clear. Anyway, before we get into that, let's go ahead and get into the fan art section. Kyubi said, did some fan art. Me and Nezu schemed this one. Suris Pool and Rhinorine. God damn it. Now I'm going to have just terrible, terrible music stuck in my head all day thanks to this. Coming to a YouTube channel near you. Rated S for silly. As always, thank you for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it in the fan art section of the video. Or the Discord. Of the Discord! That one! Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got going here. So Aaron Reed, who does a fuck ton of journalistic work that you really should be paying attention to if you are worried about trans rights in the United States, has published a lovely article here called Groundbreaking Study, Anti-Trans State Laws Increases Suicide Attempts by 72%. Oh, that's terrifying. That's, Well, I'm gonna go ram my head through drywall now. I'm not gonna eat it, but I am gonna ram my head through it. The study that was published in Nature Human Behavior offers critical insight into the effects of anti-trans legislation, including healthcare bans on transgender youth, and is the first study of its kind. In the groundbreaking study in Nature Human Behavior on Thursday, researchers found that anti-trans bans lead to a 72% increase in suicide attempts among transgender individuals compared to states that do not have such legislation. So, yeah, no one ever warned about that, right? Yeah, it is almost as if we have been talking about this shit for a very long time. A very uncomfortably long time, pointing out that the rates of trans suicide are way higher than they should be. Suicide rates, the ideal rate of suicide is 0%. But I know that we can't get suicide down to 0%. As much as I would like us to be able to get suicide down to 0% in this goddamn broken-ass country. But without the ability to get it down to 0%, what we should at least avoid is something that almost fucking doubles the rate of suicide in a group of people who already have a 40% higher chance than other groups to fucking engage in suicidal behavior. The life expectancy for trans people in the United States is actually pretty fucking low. Which, that should not be the case. There is no world where that should be the case, but that is the case, and it is a direct result of multiple politicians and multiple influencers who are doing everything in their power to try to make the world a more hostile place for trans people so that it can be more convenient for them. Right? They don't want to see a woman who is less than their stellar version of attractive when they go take a fucking piss. And so they try to kick trans people out of bathrooms. Even though the trans people who passed perfectly fine in that bathroom they never mentioned, because they only work off of stereotypes of trans people. This is why it's important to get to know people of different political persuasions. You want them to die less when you spend more time with them. Razor says we should make the world more hostile for those influencers. We should make it more hostile for their ideas. The study, which surveyed over 61,000 transgender and non-binary individuals through multiple waves of questions distributed by the Trevor Project, analyzed the state-level impact of anti-trans legislation. These bans primarily targeted gender-affirming care, bathroom access, and school policies. They had not been examined using this methodology before. The study's findings could have far-reaching international implications as more countries face pressure to implement similar restrictions on transgender people. Yes, let's just keep on restricting the trans people so they fucking kill themselves into oblivion. That's the end goal for some of these people sometimes, I think, which is just awful. It should be noted, the conservative mindset is often one of power and dominance. One where there are certain people who deserve inalienable human rights and certain people who deserve less than those rights. And that distinction is important. It doesn't make these people evil villains in the sense that they can recognize that they're engaging in evil acts. It makes them villains in the sense that they think they are the Thanos of the story. They think that what they are doing is a necessary good so that the right people can be at the top governing the people at the bottom who just don't know any better. Like the trans people who just don't know any better about what their gender is, apparently, despite the fact that most trans people know what the fuck their gender is. That's why they're taking fucking hormones! Anyway, the researchers found significant harm. States that passed anti-trans laws saw suicide attempt rates rise up by 72% amongst transgender and non-binary youth aged 13 to 17, and by 44% amongst those aged 13 to 24. To strengthen the evidence of causality, the researchers controlled for various factors, including state differences, race, age, the impact of COVID-19, and even conducted alternate placebo tests. In explaining why youth aged 13 to 17 were more affected by anti-trans legislation, researchers highlighted healthcare bans, stating that they may also rely on their parents or guardians for access to gender-affirming healthcare or other vital resources. These additional complications, combined with the impact of anti-transgender legislation, likely compound for younger TGNB individuals, transgender and non-binary individuals, contributing to the effects that were described in this study. The increase is significant, according to the Trevor Project. 20% of transgender youth in America have attempted suicide at some point in their lives. Using the Williams Institute estimate of 300,000 transgender youth in America, anti-transgender legislation could account for an increase of tens of thousands of suicide attempts by transgender people. So this is one of the reasons why when Marjorie Taylor Greene and J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and all these people who actually have control over laws in the goddamn country try desperately to engage in anti-trans legislation, it makes me a little fucking angry. Because when this shit happens, when these suicide rates happen, you can look at the politicians who are engaged in ruling against trans people as being directly responsible for these suicide attempts. Pengus16, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Bragwin says this is the whole goal of people like MTG. She wants them to die. I agree. There are plenty of people who are in power right now who are, thank you for following, Hirundo, who are what I would say is categorically evil. Now, typically, I would say for the average voter, this is not a fair thing to lump on them. This is not a fair thing to throw at the feet of the average Republican voter. The average Republican voter just doesn't know any better. The average Republican voter just votes down the line because the color's fucking red. Instead, when we actively look at the research that is being done on this, it's confirming everything we've been saying for years. Anti-trans legislation is bad and should not be pushed forward, and yet there is an increase in anti-trans legislation in the United States. We have seen more anti-trans legislation in the last 4 years than we have seen in the last 25 combined. Thanks to the large sample size, researchers were able to gather enough data on state-by-state levels to significantly analyze the impact of legislation targeting transgender youth, as demonstrated here. The findings add to a growing body of research showing that gender-affirming care saves lives, while bans on such care, along with forced outing policies in schools and bathroom restrictions, have significant impacts on transgender youth and young adults in affected states. A Cornell review of more than 51 studies determined that trans care significantly improves the mental health of transgender people. One major study even noted a 73% lower suicidality amongst trans youth who began care. A similar study found a 40% reduction in actual suicide attempts over the previous year. In a recent article published in the Journal of Adolescent Health in April of 2024, puberty blockers, oh look, there they are, puberty blockers were found to significantly reduce depression and anxiety. Wow, that's so cool! It's almost like puberty blockers are a wonderful tool that are in our pocket that we can use to keep trans kids a fucking alive. Anyway, A randomized controlled trial in Australia, which was only possible through an innovative methodology, showed a 55% reduction in suicidality for trans men able to start testosterone. Riveting. It's not new information, but it is context to prove that information was always fucking true in the first place. In Germany, a recent review by over 27 medical organizations have judged that not providing treatment can do harm to transgender youth. The evidence around transgender care led to a historic policy resolution condemning bans on gender-affirming care by the American Psychological Association, the largest psychological association in the world. This was voted on by representatives of its 157,000 members. This study, however, is likely to become a key piece of evidence in the fight against harsh anti-trans legislation, including care restrictions due to its innovative design, large sample size, and ability to capture the direct impacts of anti-transgender laws across multiple states. Good! We needed something that was able to fight that really bunk fucking study, the Cass report. Said it is without question that anti-transgender policies and the dangerous rhetoric surrounding them take a measurable toll on the health and safety of transgender and non-binary people across the country. Also, thank you for the follow, Victory. The Victory. And that was said by James Black, Chief Executive Officer at the Trevor Project, in a press release. As we get closer to the critical elections this November, these young people will continue to be reduced to political talking points. I urge every adult, no matter your political beliefs, to remember that transgender, non-binary people are our family and our friends and our neighbors. It is not necessary to fully understand their experience to acknowledge that they, like all young people, deserve dignity, respect, and the ability to lead full and healthy lives. So, to piggyback off of that, this is something that I have seen in advertisements against Kamala Harris constantly in the last few days. Whenever I am out at the bar, whenever I am out anywhere where there is a TV that is airing anything, if I'm at the gym, I am seeing this one advertisement that is constantly harping on Kamala Harris, saying, oh, she wants to have all of the inmates transitioned using your tax dollars. It's fucking crazy because we already live in a world where we give inmates medical care. If we accept that transition is a medical issue, then wouldn't it necessarily mean that medical care and transition help is given to inmates because we give medical care to people? The only argument against letting inmates transition is an argument against healthcare being given to inmates in the first place. And if you're against inmates getting healthcare, then one, I sincerely hope nothing bad ever happens to you and you end up in a position where you're in jail for any amount of time. And I sincerely hope you one day remember that everybody else who is in the prison system is also a human being just like you. And yet, people seem to conveniently forget that fact when it comes to rhetoric that they don't like. They get to hear, oh, Kamala's gonna let people transition in prison, and then suddenly they're thinking of people in prison being rapists. Now, there is some well-intentioned there. The idea that we shouldn't let people who are going to rape others go into the women's prison, as an example. But did you know that if you take a, let's go ahead and say, anybody at all, and you put them in a prison, there's a non-zero chance they are going to rape somebody. Because there's a non-zero chance in any area of the world that somebody is going to try to engage in a rape. This is not a good thing. This is a bad thing. The thing to do is to look out for red flags. The thing to do is to look out for when somebody is trying to engage in that behavior. And you're not going to find a higher proclivity towards raping people in the trans population or the gay population. You're not going to find more rapists there. You're going to find a number of rapists that makes absolute fucking sense compared to every other group in the world. Kitsune Cavalier says, but wait, it's letting trans inmates transition, or is it forcing cis inmates to transition? According to the right, this should break their brains. No, the advertisements always go, Kamala Harris wants... What is it? Kamala Harris wants inmates, illegal immigrant inmates, to be allowed to transition. And, like, if that I don't care. If that happens, I just don't care. It's not an issue for me. My tax dollars are already funding a lot of different medical care for a lot of different inmates right now. And you know what? They need medical care like anybody else. Horrendous says, I honestly don't understand the right's talking point. Are they angry at prisoners are getting health care? And if that's the issue, since most of them consider gender-affirming care to be mutilation, wouldn't they be happy about torturing the prisoners like that? It's a incoherent ideology. It is an incoherent ideology from the get-go. But, that all said, I do want to know what y'all think in the comment section below, because this whole situation is all kinds of weird and fucked up. So, let me know down there what you think. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert into video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Agamotto, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.